Hi there. In this video tutorial, I'll be walking through the installation process for the RARS simulator on a Linux machine. As you can see, I have a fresh install of Ubuntu 20.04. However, for the purposes of this guide, any of the common distributions are going to be just fine. If you have a more customized Linux distribution, like Arch, then you're likely more familiar with the build process or downloading packages than I am, so I think you're also going to be just fine. That being said, before we start, we're going to need to make sure that we have Bash and Java installed on our machine. To do this, we're going to open our terminal and run two commands. First being bash-version. This just tells us that we have a working version of Bash on our machine. Later on in this tutorial, we're going to be downloading an installation script to handle a lot of the build process for us. This script is written in Bash, and so we won't be able to run it otherwise. If you don't have Bash on your machine for whatever reason, you'll still be able to download and install RARS. However, you're going to have to follow the manual build process, which we'll be going over later. Second thing we need to check is Java. To check Java, we're going to be running the command java-version. And as we can see, I have OpenJDK14 installed on my machine. If you have a really old version of Java, or you don't have Java installed on your machine, online guides and tutorials are a dime a dozen, so I won't be going over how to install it here. I suggest pausing this video, doing a quick Google search on how to update or download Java, and then coming back when you've finished. It's important to get a version of Java that's later, or the same as Java 8. However, Java 8 came out quite a while ago, and so what that just boils down to is don't download a version of Java that came out more than 4 or 5 years ago. Now that we have Java and Bash on the machine, we can get started. The first thing we're going to do is open our browser, actually, and we're going to be heading to the home page for all the lab assignments. You'll be able to access this through eClass. However, since I have in my recent history, I'm going to jump there directly. This page is dedicated to all the lab assignments you'll be doing throughout Compute 229, and in this page, there's going to be a link to a separate page dedicated to setting up RARS on your machine. This page is likely going to look different than it does at the time of recording, and so it might not be exactly where it is in this video, but it is going to be somewhere. And when we go to this page, it's going to look something like this. The first thing we're going to do is download this script, getrars.sh. This is the installation script I mentioned earlier. Head to our download folder. So we have getrars. However, it's currently just a plain text file. So first we need to convert it to an executable script. And do that with the command chmod +x and then the file name. And as we can see in Ubuntu, it highlights it green. And this just means that it's now going to be treated as an executable and we can run the installation script. To run it, we're going to run // in the file name. And this is going to be downloading all the relevant files for RARS. It's going to be inputting our password. And the installation is finished. Now to open RARS, all we have to do is type the command RARS. You see after a second, it opens up RARS 1.3, which you'll be doing all of your lab assignments and testing and debugging your programs throughout Compute 229. Now, let's say for whatever reason you want to uninstall RARS. Maybe the course is over and you just don't want it on your machine anymore. What you can do is run this script directly. However, let's assume that it's been a while since you've installed it and you don't have this off by heart. In your home directory, when the script installed RARS, it installed what's called a jar file, which is basically the meat and potatoes of the RARS simulator written in Java. And I need to put this jar file somewhere. And so when the command RARS runs, what it does is it calls Java and it tells it to boot up the jar file and start the simulator. The place where it put this jar file was in a hidden folder called .229 files. And so in your home directory, there's going to be a folder called .229 files. And in this folder, there's going to be two files. There's going to be the RARS jar file that I mentioned earlier, and there's going to be a cleanup script. To uninstall RARS, all we have to do is run /cleanup.sh. And this is going to delete the RARS executable script and the jar file, everything associated with it. And then when we try running RARS now, you see that it doesn't recognize RARS as a command or a program on your system. Now, for what I expect to be about 99% of people following this tutorial, this is where it ends. As from now on, I'll be walking through the manual build process. So for whatever reason, if the installation script didn't work or you don't have Bash on your system, the rest of this tutorial is for you. Otherwise, feel free to leave the video. Now, to manually build it, we're going to need to install two separate files. First, the jar file directly. And then we're also going to have to download the RARS executable script. If we head to our download folder, see we have get RARS, which we're just going to ignore for now, the RARS command that we were using previously, but now we had to manually install, and the jar file. Similar to how the installation script put it in the .229 files folder, we're going to have to put the jar file somewhere on our machine so we can access it later. You can put it wherever you want. However, for posterity, I'm going to put it in the same folder as the installation script. I'll move the jar file to 229 files. Actually, I think I just overwrote the directory. Yeah, I just did. All right. See, we have moved the jar file to a folder, and there's I'm putting it in a hidden folder. It's just so it's out of the way. Go back to our downloads folder. We also have this RARS script to take care of. So there's two parts to the RARS download. There's the jar file, and then there's the executable script or the command that runs the jar file. We're going to need to open up this script. And in this bash script, very short, I know, but we're going to need to update this path variable with the appropriate location of the jar file, wherever we put it. So I opened it up in Vim, and then I'm just going to be writing its location. You don't have to use Vim, you can feel free to use whatever text editor you're most comfortable with. But yeah, once we've done that, we then need to make it an executable script. Because right now it's just a normal text file, similar to the get RARS. And we're mostly done. Now if we tried running /RARS, you see that it would boot up RARS as it did before. However, notice before there was no / before the RARS, and before we could run the RARS command anywhere in our file directory. However, if we try running /RARS anywhere else, it's not going to recognize it. That's because the installation script, it put it in one of your bin folders to treat it as a command, while here it's just a normal user script. So to remedy that, we're going to just have to move it to the appropriate bin folder. We're also going to use admin privileges for this, so we start the command with sudo and move RARS to /user. The first slash is important, by the way. /user /local /bin /RARS. It's really easy to mess this up, so make sure that you haven't made any typos in the user /local /bin /RARS part of this command, because otherwise it's going to put the script in an incorrect location, and it's going to be easy to reverse, but it's an easy mistake to make, so just double check that you haven't made any typos. Now, when we run RARS, it boots up the simulator as it did with the installation script. For manually uninstalling RARS, all we have to do is delete the jar file and then also delete the executable script that we just moved into our bin folder. To do that, we're going to sudo arm-f /local bin RARS. And then we're also going to delete our jar file, and I'm just going to delete the overall folder. Now, RARS has been uninstalled. That's everything, and concludes this video tutorial.